2024. If it's 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's time for This Week in Waukesha on WAUK, 540 AM, 101.1 FM, The Shaw. I'm your host, Downtown Donnie Brown, coming to you live and local on this beautiful sunny morning, mind you, here from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown here in downtown, right around the corner from Theodore Yeomans Park, where we are proud to honor our suffragette heritage here in the Shaw. And speaking of heritage, it's day 2 of National Music in Our Schools Month and day 2 of Irish American History Month. And speaking of history, I am honored to have Mr. John Schoenknecht, arguably our foremost historian of Waukesha. And so we're going to be talking Waukesha history this morning, but we're going to give you some updates on playoff basketball for both our high schools and Carroll University. We've got lots of local news, including an event for the Community Towel Project next week, Brush and Branches pickup coming up, the Boots and Branches basketball game, and more. And we're also going to give you a follow-up on the Melodies for Mary fundraiser last week by the firefighters. Last Saturday, actually, that was a huge success, and a big shout-out to the firefighters and the Schrader family. And then also, we're going to talk just a little bit here about Irish American History Month and a new movie I want to promote. But first, our very special guest, John Schoenknecht, is a retired middle school. Am I pronouncing your name first, John?
It's Schoenknecht.
Schoenknecht. Okay, my apologies.
That's
So
all right.
terrible journalism and research on my part. So, but I think I might be able to blame Johnny's on the board here. So, not to be confused, John Schoenknecht and Johnny Watermelon are with me today. Johnny,
wasn't me.
Yep, Johnny's on the board. So, John Schoenknecht is a retired middle school teacher, art teacher from where he served his career at Butler Middle School here in Waukesha. He served on the Waukesha Landmarks Commission and the executive board of the Waukesha County Historical Society. After retiring, he wrote a history column for the Waukesha Freeman, and he has written several books on the history of Waukesha. John, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks.
Good. Really glad you're here. And we had a great chance to get to know each other better before the show started. And so the first question is how did a history teacher, art teacher, an art teacher become interested in Waukesha history?
Well,
something to do with the phone book, right?
Yeah, it did. When I came here for a job interview, I had a couple of them at the time, and I would look in the library at UW Oshkosh and look up in the phone book the history of the city. And so in the phone book at 1974, it talked about the springs that used to be here. And when I specifically remember when I went in for my interview, I asked the secretary, well, what happened to all these springs?
Right. She
was born and raised here and couldn't really answer. And so that kind of started me getting interested in where the springs were, what happened, and what happened to them. And then I started collecting bottles and ended up with a collection of 600-some bottles from the springs and breweries of Waukesha.
Yeah, because we had quite a few.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah. In fact, the one near City Hall is reopened, that brewery.
Oh, right.
I forget that.
Weber. It was Weber Brewery, and it's North Pillar Brewery.
That's right. And I did get to go there on a Saturday afternoon a few weeks back and met Braden, the owner. It's a really nice job with the renovations, if you will. And the product's good, too. So.
Yeah, I don't drink beer, but I have to get over there because they got some photos. I don't know if they enlarged them of the old Weber Brewery that they were going to put up.
Okay. Yeah. So that'd be fun.
Oh, yeah.
So would it be safe to say that when you were interviewing in 1974 that you said it was the secretary or maybe the interviewer you were talking to?
It was the school secretary.
Was she a sampling of like the rest of the community back then in terms of the knowledge of the Springs era?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Wow.
Right. The biggest thing that they had were some enlargements from postcards at the library, at the public library, and people remember those very fondly. And that there was no place to go to find out the history of them in one place.
Right.
So I kind of had this idea after about 10 or 15 years, it would be neat to put that all together.
Wow. And while you were still teaching art at Butler?
Yeah. This is really sad, but every Friday, when I started working on this book, every Friday night, I would go to the library and read microfilms
Cool.
And you had a.
I miss those. They still have them though, I think, right?
Yeah,
Microfilms and
they're still
microfiche. Yeah.
But they didn't have. There was no computers, no internet. So
Okay.
I read every Waukesha Freeman from 1868 till around 1914.
Yeah. So
to find out about the springs, and now you could do it, a lot
online.
quicker.
Yeah. So, but I'll tell you though, that's from one history buff to another. That's actually my idea of a good time on a Friday night. So
yeah, it wasn't bad. It was fun.
So, especially history. There's just so much we haven't
unearthed. Definitely,
especially locally, and then you look at our social history and
right.
So, but what were some of your, I guess, challenges or pitfalls along the way in terms of redeveloping or reestablishing this Springs history?
Just the time, I think, was the biggest thing. First, you had to learn it all, and then organize everything, and
right,
and then that was about 8 years, and then took another 8 years to actually write everything. Okay. And along this time, then the computers were starting.
Okay,
so that helped a lot, but it's as a historian, you think you have everything nailed down, and then
right.
something else comes along. And so that's kind of the fun part, at least working with the Springs. There's always something new that you find, or something different. So
neat. Now, the book that you brought here this morning, The Great Waukesha Springs Era, was that the first book that you published?
Yes.
Okay. And what year is that? Did that come out?
Well, there's 3. This is the 3rd edition. So 2003, and then around this one came out in 2023. The 3rd edition.
Nice.
So, and this is a lot bigger than. There's a lot more information in this one than when I started. So
sure. Hey, we're taking your calls for John Schoenknecht, one of our foremost historians. 844-967-2789. Now, the town that I grew up in, it had a rich history. It was founded like in 1803 by Quakers in Western New York. And when I was growing up, there was a town historian. Has that designation been bestowed upon you?
No.
Okay.
No. I think
I know the mayor's a big fan.
That's good to know. In New York, each county, I believe, is required to have a historian.
Okay.
And so each county takes care of its history, and that's not the case here. So I'm just kind of
unofficial. Yeah. So, well, maybe we'll have to work on that somehow. No, you got enough on your plate. Okay, right. That's fair.
I'm retired.
That's right. So, well, you know what they say, true retirement's lying horizontal in a box with a daisy in your hands.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm not there yet.
It looks like you're you keep yourself very busy. You're very active, especially when there's history to be learned and rediscovered and the like.
Definitely.
So
I'm volunteering at the museum also. I volunteer there twice a week in the research center.
Okay.
So we learn new things all the time. Always.
Sure.
Always something new coming in.
Sounds great. Johnny, how are we doing on time here? About 5 minutes. Hey, just wanted to juxtapose this too for our listeners here that Stuart J. Waddles and Maggie Dawn, they'll be broadcasting, covering the State of the Union broadcast next week, Thursday, March 7th at 8 p.m. Speaking of history, so we encourage all of you to check that out. Stuart J. Waddles is Civic Media's Southeast Wisconsin News Bureau Chief, and Maggie Dawn is the host of the Maggie Dawn Show that airs from on 2 p.m. in Civic Media, and she hosts it. She even has an office in residence here, just like the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown here at WAUK in Waukesha. Just a wealth of great legal and political expertise, if you will. But so the two of them will be hosting that broadcast of President Biden's State of the Union address Thursday evening beginning at 8 on select media stations, and I believe WAUK is included on that. And again, Maggie Dawn's show started this week, actually, the new show. She used to be on in the evenings. So she started on Monday, and that's from 2 to 4, brand new time. So be sure to check out Maggie. It's a wonderful show. She covers everything from local government to the economy, sports, and everything in between. So listen to Maggie Dawn on select Civic Media radio stations weekday afternoons at 2 p.m. And speaking of Civic Media, be sure to do yourself a favor and download the Civic Media app. So we've got great reception here in Waukesha with 101.1 FM, 540 AM. goes all the way down to like I know people that was listening to one of my basketball broadcasts while they were driving to O'Hare to fly out of town.
Oh my!
And I've heard it even goes as far as Northwest Indiana. But the Civic Media app, you can take it with you everywhere. And the one advantage is if you're traveling around the state, as many Waukesha residents do, going to their summer homes and cottages, that you can check out. We have over 20 stations. So, and in some of those stations, you can catch the Brewers game in the radio. And when you think of like how not so great the internet is there, having that app and having access to radio is very important for getting your news. And so be sure to do yourself a favor, download the Civic Media app. And I know as much as you love listening to me, you may decide to go out and get your Starbucks or better yet, your Steaming Cup or some of the other great coffee shops we have here. So definitely download the Civic Media app and take it with you everywhere. So, but returning to John Schoenknecht, I'm so glad we got that name correct. So, what does a typical Saturday look like for you when you're not a guest on my show?
Myself?
Yeah.
I'm usually out riding my bike if the weather's nice.
Love it.
Yeah, so. I like bike riding a lot.
So, yeah, and again, one of the things I forgot is to give you kind of a brief what the temperature is here. Maybe Johnny can look it up for him, but it is beautifully sunny. It feels warmer, maybe not as warm as it was earlier in the week, but it certainly looks like another beautiful day. And we've really been, except for that 1 week, we've been really blessed with a pretty mild winter and even enjoyable one where we can walk outside. And I've even saw people in shorts.
Yes.
I remember that was last week, but anyway, we're really grateful that way. So, how many books? Actually, yeah, we're gonna continue this conversation with John Schoenknecht. We're going to talk about the other books that he's written. Want to talk about what people can do to take advantage of the Historical Society, how they owe it to themselves, either as individuals or families and groups, and so much more to talk about. And also a local student from Waukesha South. I'm looking forward to honoring a good young man, friend of the family's. So much going on here this week in Waukesha on WAUK on this beautiful Saturday morning. This week in Waukesha on WAUK on this beautiful Saturday morning, March 2nd, 2024. And speaking of Waukesha history, that was Les Paul and Mary Ford with The World is Waiting for the Sunrise. Did I get that right, John? John Schoenknecht, our foremost historian.
I don't know. I know a little about Les Paul and Mary Ford, but not that particular song.
So that's terrific. Yeah. So your first book then was the great Waukesha Springs era, and you've had through two publications of that.
Correct. Yeah.
And one of the books was gifted to me to the studio by the mayor that we're having a hard time finding, but it's here. Prairieville. What was the name of the?
From Prairieville to Waukesha.
From Prairieville to Waukesha, and I enjoyed going through that and getting some good bits.
Right. That was the first 2 years of columns that I published in the Waukesha Freeman.
Okay, fantastic.
So we put them into a book.
That's right.
Right.
So true.
And then I also did one on called with a friend of mine, David Capsos, called "Brewed with Waukesha Water." History of the breweries. But that was a smaller, kind of self-published thing.
It'd be a good read, though.
It's fun. Yeah.
Sure.
We've learned a lot more since then, and I think anyways, I know at one point I intended to have more about another book about Foxhead and Weber Brewing Companies.
Okay. Sure.
And then I did one just during COVID, which was called Stereo Views of Waukesha.
Okay.
Stereo views were popular in the 1860s to 1900. There's two images that are put together, and you look at them through a special viewer, and it creates a three-dimensional
Oh, wow.
effect. So Waukesha was fortunate because of its popularity as a tourist trap. or tourist center at the time. There were a lot of stereo views of Waukesha published.
Yeah.
So I was able to gather them from the museum, my own collection, and others.
Well, and I look at some of the remnants of the Springs era, like I believe it was called the Bethesda, which I think there's the Bible Institute there. Like, what a beautiful building on a hill there. And
that's Rest Haven.
That was Rest Haven?
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
The spring that was down near there was Arcadian Spring, where their gas station
that would make
is.
Sense. Yeah.
So,
oh, wow.
It's a beautiful building.
Do they allow tours of any type there, or do they allow you to come and lead some tours?
We've been friends with them for a long time. They're open. I think they'll be open during the Waukesha Unlocked this fall in October.
Thank you for reminding me. The deadline for that is April 1st, and I just got the okay from our leadership here that WAUK will also be participating.
Great.
In Waukesha Unlocked, and it was Saturday and Sunday a couple years ago, and Saturday we were packed. Johnny was here helping with that. Sunday, not so much. And I realized was that in the thing you had to fill out, I said we'd only be available on Saturday. And so that's what. So we're going to make sure we're available both days because,
great.
The original model for the station was Waukesha's oldest and newest radio station because there was a WAUK for a long time.
Yes.
But there was a certain amount of resentment because the station was, I think it was dedicated towards Christian news, or it was a Christian, station. And then I think at one time it might have been for country music, but it was never really about Waukesha. And I think that was a sore spot with a lot of Waukesha residents. Now with the second coming or third, whatever you want to call that, we are very much all about Waukesha. And again, it's embarrassing to me that I wasn't able to have you on sooner, and that's on me. So
well, actually, and I do think that when WAUK started, the studios were downtown.
It was a different location,
yeah, way back in the 50s, and it was pretty Waukesha-centric.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Okay.
And then I think I don't know.
Was it a WAUK call letter or a different?
There was WAUK and WAUX.
Okay. Maybe that was the WAUX that was more Waukesha, because I know when I was reading, and again, I'm using Wikipedia, so it's not the ultimate source, as I'm sure you can attest to, but I thought that I'd read that it was initially all about whatever that theme was. It was Christian or country music, or
it may have been gone through those, but I happen to know a friend of mine, Bill Schley, and his dad owned it.
Oh wow, okay.
When it was downtown, and I mean they were involved in the local sports scene.
And they're still around here locally. Bill,
yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll have to have him on the show then
if he can make it. Yeah,
yeah.
Be neat. So it definitely did cover sports. They had students from the schools down there, so it was a real small town radio station. Sure. At the beginning.
Sure. Well, good. No, thanks for sharing that. Now, hey, speaking of students, I want to talk about some living history here. Congratulations to Gabriel Lascano. John, you remember Gabe from football? Yep. He shakes his head up and down. Gabriel's a senior at Waukesha South High School and submitted artwork for the jewelry category for the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. The 2024 Scholastic Art Awards Wisconsin exhibition will be on display at the Milwaukee Art Museum from February 24th through April 7th. The Scholastic Art Awards Wisconsin exhibition has been hosted at the Milwaukee Art Museum since 1976 to celebrate excellence in the visual arts and encourage young people's artistic endeavors in the state of Wisconsin. So congratulations, Gabe Lascano, and to his parents, Martine and Allie Lascano.
That's really quite an honor. I had students, we'd enter.
That's right, yeah, as an art teacher.
Contest,
yeah.
Sure, and I had a few win gold keys and silver keys, and one of my students at one time went to, it was on a display in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Because it won a big national award. And Waukesha
very cool.
has a strong tradition of art, very strong art department.
Sure.
Yeah, and that show they're competing against other artwork from around the state. So.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it because we'll be talking about some Waukesha playoff basketball in our next segment. But we got this great art and music tradition. This is I just learned yesterday. This is National Music in Our Schools Month. And Waukesha North on their social media page had said that the marching band is engaging. They're going to be in several events this month. So check their website. And in Waukesha South, I saw Dan Schreier, their director of athletics and activities, and he had said the same thing. There's quite a few music events going on at South, and I'm sure it's the same at West and CMH to honor this month because it's all about the importance of music in our schools. And on April 7th, I know the University of Wisconsin, the Badger Marching Band will be performing at Waukesha South, and I think the other area marching bands, the other Waukesha High School marching bands will also be participating. So a lot to look forward to in our music, and it's great to hear there's also a great art tradition.
Definitely, yeah.
So Gabe's just one, but
Right.
But it is an elite group though in terms of the talent.
Definitely, yes.
So
Good teachers too.
sure. What kind of art would you teach? Like what?
I taught ceramics. So
Okay.
7th and 8th grade, and when I
Sure.
started the 7th graders, I had 150 students for 6 weeks for ceramics.
Sure.
Then I get another 150. So
Neat.
and then
They had the old kilns.
oh yeah, we had when I started the kiln was
Those
in
are
the,
like the original popcorn makers. The reliability, at least like in
my
high
gosh,
school. Yeah.
The kiln was in the middle of the room.
Sophomore dies in kiln explosion. And she was going to make me a pot. But that's always reminded me. But that's, ceramics, though, I think is awesome.
Yeah. And then I taught drawing and painting also. So
Nice.
a 7th grade survey class, drawing and painting. Then towards the end, I developed a program called Art and Technology,
Okay.
where we started to use computers. We did claymation, which was a big thing. So I learned how to do animation on a computer, and we did a lot of fun stuff.
Sounds great. So more art, music, and history with John Schoenknecht, our foremost historian here in Waukesha. And my guests next week are school board candidates Angelique Byrne and Stephanie Fidlin. And more school board guests on the 16th here in This Week in Waukesha on WAUK.
Dear one, the world is waiting for the sunrise. Every little
AUK.
The Salvation Army band played, and the children drank the lemonade, and the morning lasted all day, and through an open window came, like Sinatra in a younger day, pushing the town away. Life in a northern town. Sat on the stony ground, and he took a sip.
Drake. The Dream Academy with Life in a Northern Town. And so I always, usually on a cold winter day, I enjoy that song, but it's not like that today. It's beautiful and sunny. And I mentioned Nick Drake because the Dream Academy dedicated that song to Nick Drake, who was a great folk artist who had died in the 70s, but had a few albums out that had minimal success, but then was rediscovered many years later. There's a famous Volkswagen commercial where a song Pink Moon is on, and he's quite the cult following, but I really enjoy his music. But Life in a Northern Town, and there's a neat historic, the band talks about growing up in one of these like northern English towns, but it's very much like that for us here in the north and the snow belt of the U.S. and John Schoenknecht, my guest, has been chronicling that throughout his time, especially as an art teacher at Butler Middle School here in Waukesha. And now, John, you were raised born and raised in Cedarburg.
Correct, right?
And then you went to college at UW Oshkosh, and then you took a job here in Waukesha because there was a new high school, a new school opening up.
Right, North High School opened, and all the art teachers at Butler left.
Yeah,
so we were 3 rookie art teachers there.
But now, like yourself, like myself, you're a transplant, and Waukesha is very much a part of you and your identity and
right.
the things
I didn't
that
want
mean
to
most
leave.
to you. Yeah. So
Well,
that's terrific.
Waukesha is just fortunate because it has an amazing history.
Sure.
There's a lot of towns that same size that just
Yeah.
don't have the rich history that Waukesha
Right.
does.
And there's nobody capturing it or say making it, just kind of going through the
Right.
motions,
Right.
A lot of
That's
bedroom communities
Right.
and that's what's neat about Waukesha is that you've got generations of people that have chosen to live here, the children have chosen to come back and raise their own families, and
Sure.
as well as a lot of like transplants like us that like really like the character of the community and a lot of the features and benefits that it provides.
Definitely.
And so, so this is one of those promotional commercials. This is us speaking in earnest. And Johnny's a native of Green Bay who came down here in retirement and calls it his home and lives here in downtown. So he's the true downtown Johnny Watermelon as opposed to me calling myself downtown Donnie Brown. But my wife and I do love coming to downtown. I love coming downtown on Saturday mornings. So, excuse me.
Well, when we first came here, the downtown in '74, the downtown was not what it is today, and it was the art community that really got the changes started. There were one-way streets.
Yeah.
The major Highway 18 ran through the middle of downtown Waukesha, so it was hard to get around. And
Sure.
there weren't many good restaurants. There was not a lot to do because of the effect of Brookfield Square and the malls.
Yeah.
So it was kind of deserted, and it was really fun to watch the revitalization of the downtown area. It's so vibrant and active and fun now.
Right. Yeah, it really is. And we were talking. In fact, this is a good opportunity to mention some local news about the. I slide down here in my notes that the community tile project, the Waukesha Strong Community Tile Project, on Saturday, March 9th, a week from today, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Waukesha Public Library. Everyone's invited to engrave a clay tile that will be installed as part of the parade memorial at Greedy Park. The cost of the tile is $25 with all proceeds going to the Parade Memorial Fund. And I know the city, they've made some real traction on that. They're getting closer to their goal.
Right.
So that's really exciting. But tools and stamps will be provided for us to work with, so you can develop your tile. And look forward to seeing everybody on March 9th at the library. And so, John, not Johnny, but, we love Johnny. John Schoenknecht and I were talking offline about, is there a parade history? I mean, and not just the tragedy, although that's important. We're doing things like the Community Tile Project and the Parade Memorial at Greedy Park to acknowledge that. But the parade's been going on for I believe this last one was the 70th annual.
I believe so, right. Well, first of all,
there was a history, a retail, there was a vibrant retail in downtown, and the parade was a big part of that.
Definitely, and the churches were very involved. Every church had a float. And at the Waukesha County Museum, we have the possession of the Freeman negatives from about 1949 to the 90s.
Okay.
And so we're able to trace back a lot of the history photographs through the photographs that were published in the Freeman.
Sure.
And what's really cool is they didn't, they would take a roll of 36 pictures, but put one in the newspaper. So there's a lot of other photos that are also in the file with them. So it's been a long, rich tradition.
Sure.
And as a former ceramics teacher, I'm really happy to see that they're having that the tile project. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think it's one, and giving so many people an opportunity to participate and leave their own mark.
Right.
Showing support for Waukesha Strong. So I think that's just a wonderful undertaking. And so I'm going to talk my family on, provided there's no softball or other athletic endeavors going on, that they meet me at the library after the show and we can make some tiles together. I think that's
sounds like a plan.
It's certainly a great way to spend a beautiful Saturday, especially we have the same kind of sunshine as today. And so as promised, we had a lot of playoff basketball going on this week. And on Tuesday night, we had another, the first round was a crosstown rivalry between Waukesha North and Waukesha South. It was hosted at North, and it was a rubber match because both teams won at home against each other. First game in December, North in the second half just kind of ran away with it and really put a beating on South. Second game, South came, they put a beating on North, but North came back and tied it and went to overtime, and then South won it in overtime. It was just it was great theater. It was wonderful, fantastic. And, of course, as a South parent, I was excited. But Then at North, we had, Waukesha South came out really strong. They were leading at 10 at half. And then North came back. And it was just a really well-played game by both teams. And South pulled it out, 87-77, led by 27 points from the junior guard, the general, Zayas DeWalt, and 21 points from senior forward Evan Stout, my son, by the way. And but the play of the game, North is pulling in, like they basically knocked down a 11 or 12 point deficit down to 1 point with like 9 minutes left. The momentum was clearly in their favor. And there was a mishandling of the ball in the backcourt, and suddenly one of the bigger forwards for North has the ball, fast break. He's going in like this. He makes this layup, and it looks like he's going to make it. North's up by 1, and then talk about the pendulum swing like that, almost like a knockout punch, even though it's only a 1 point game. And senior forward guard Charlie Morose, who was also an all-state soccer goalkeeper, great athlete, from out of nowhere he comes out, managed to win the race to the bat, jumps out in front of him and blocks it. On my Facebook post this morning, there is a little video clip. I'm surprised it hasn't gone viral nationally. Like that would be on ESPN. It was one of the most athletic plays I have ever seen. And you hear the roar of the crowd when it happens, because then the ball ends up in Evan Stout's hands after the block. He dribbles, coast to coast, passes it to Zayas DeWalt, who then passes it to Joe Cost in the corner, who drains a 3. So a big 5-point swing. And it was just, and then I don't want to say South never looked back from there, but that certainly, put them in the right path to victory. And it earned South the right to play at Wisconsin Lutheran against the undefeated Vikings, 24-0, whose star player, Con Knipple, is a commit to Duke University. And it was an exciting first 10 minutes. It was a good game. But after that, the superior strength of Wisconsin Lutheran won. I think it was like a 78-38 victory. So, but congrats to South and North on some great efforts. And in Waukesha West, they beat the number 6 seed, New Berlin Eisenhower, 65-64 on Tuesday night. So congrats to them. That was a big upset. And they were playing last night, but I don't have news or intel on that. So again, we're taking your calls or your texts. If anyone has intel on that, we certainly want to let people know what happened to Waukesha West. 844-967-2789. And then also Carroll University, after winning the CCIW Conference Championship in probably the same dramatic fashion as I described the boys team, they were picked as a top seed to host the Division III March Madness. And bear with me a moment here. But and then what was exciting is the student government at Carroll paid for all the tickets for the students.
Nice.
Which is, a really wonderful gesture. And they're hosting UW Puget Sound. Now, here's my trivia question. Don't answer, John. For those listeners, where is Puget Sound? Where in Wisconsin is Puget Sound? Let's see what we got here. But they unfortunately they lost 74-65. Okay. Natalie Gricius led all Pioneers with 20 points. Olivia Ranhel had 12. And so it was a heartbreaker. But again, all that basketball those girls were playing and all the success they were having, it's hard to continue that on into the tournament. As someone who went to Michigan State and watched us lose to Middle Tennessee State about 6 or 7 years ago, I can understand that. I know a lot of Pioneer Nation is heartbroken and devastated, I think, expecting a win by the higher seed Carroll, the 13th ranked Carroll Pioneers. But, that's March Madness, and that's college basketball. It's any given day.
Yes.
And so, but it should not take away from the enormous success of Coach Lindsay Schultz, who was named, I guess, Conference Coach of the Year, and the Pioneers, the women's basketball team, 23-5.
Wow.
And that's like the best record in school history. Amazing. I think of any basketball team there, men's or women's. And so they do deserve a lot of congratulations and a big shout out, and certainly looking forward to more in the future. But returning here to John Schoenknecht, my guest, what is your connection to Carroll University here in our university community?
Well, when they started a master's in education program, I was in the first group that went through that program. So I got my master's from Carroll in the 1990s, early 1990s.
Okay.
My most interesting sports story about Carroll is that they were the team where the first legal forward pass
Yeah.
was thrown against them, and it was in Waukesha. But I wrote a whole column because there's a lot of misconception.
Sure.
I believe at the time it was still Carroll Academy, so it wasn't college. It was more of a high school prep school at the time.
Oh, really?
Not
Okay.
not 100% sure.
Okay.
But,
So I knew it started out as like a college prep and then became a
Came
college,
col-
and then
yeah,
but it's still the oldest university in the college in the state.
Correct,
For sure.
correct,
So
correct.
yeah.
and the biggest question was, where was that pass thrown?
Yeah.
And through reading newspaper accounts and yearbooks from both schools, that game was played where the Wisconsin School for Boys was at the time, which is down near Saratoga.
It's the STEM school there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Mike Schulis, the athletic director at Carroll, had told me about that. And Johnny and I had driven by there several times. Like, no, it can't be, but that was a big enough spot of grass. Yeah, and I guess
it
there were
was-
buildings there then. Either,
right.
yeah,
There's
so.
buildings that aren't there
Yeah,
anymore, and there was
but
like a
that's the spot.
central courtyard.
So we need to put a sign on there.
Right.
Site of the
I think
first-
a marker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So and every quarterback known for their passing should go there and
Right.
lay some flowers or some sort of dedication.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. So hey, before I forget, I want to thank Jared Dable of Waukesha South, proud parent, for sending in this text. Big shout out to the Waukesha South co-ed cheer for their 5th straight state title. That's 5 state titles in a row. So
Wow.
we invited them to kind of sneak in, and that was on Jared to maybe try to, but again, these young ladies and their coaches are very busy, and the young men, including Logan Dable and Ben Jimenez, part of that championship effort. Congratulations to them, and really to all the young ladies and gentlemen that for that continuing success. We should be so proud. And so more with John Schoenknecht, and then my guests on the March 16th, awaiting confirmation, are incumbent board members up for re-election, Anthony Zenobia and Kelly Piazek. Still waiting on confirmation of that, but that'll be a nice follow-up to our March 9th show where we have the contenders coming on. So so much to look forward to here in our University City on this beautiful Saturday morning, March 2nd. This week in Waukesha, this beautiful Saturday morning, March 2nd, 2024. My guest is John Schoenknecht, Waukesha historian extraordinaire. And we were talking about John's connection to Carroll University, where he was part of one of the first master's program in education.
Correct. Yep.
And then John had remembered a bit of Waukesha history that many of us know, that it is the site, Carroll University history, where it's the site of the first forward pass in college football. And the other team had adapted it, as I understand, because Carroll had this, like 12 blocks of ground, this great defense. And so that's why they decided to throw the ball. And the field is over by, how should I say it? Where the Saratoga complex is.
Correct.
So if you could elaborate on that more, John,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, at one time that was was called the Wisconsin School for Boys. It was a state institution, and so boys that were orphans or abandoned by the parents or criminals got caught stealing, they were all
Sure.
sent to this school, and they lived in what they called cottages. So they lived as a family in a
Okay.
cottage, maybe 20 boys.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a huge complex.
Yeah.
There were a lot of these dorm buildings, about 12 of them, I think, and then a dining place. So it was a large complex, and in the middle of that complex was a central area that they used as a gathering grounds, and that's where this game was played. We finally.
So it's kind of like Harry Potter, where they're playing that sport, their version of
Quidditch,
football. And,
yeah.
and that central courtyard, if you will.
Right. So again, I'm not sure if it at Carroll at that time was a actual college or
Okay.
if it was for a time in its history it was a prep school.
Okay.
Where there was more of like a high school before Waukesha had a high school.
Okay.
They went to Carroll, and because it's confusing because they were playing this team. The team that they lost to, I think, was from St. Louis.
Right. It was either St. Louis University or Washington U. Was one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the pass was thrown against Carroll.
Right.
Carroll didn't throw it. But,
So
but that same Waukesha High School, a Carroll College team also played Menominee Falls High School as part of their season. So I'm not sure exactly what they were at the time.
okay.
It's a little hard to tell from the newspapers. Also.
Sure. Okay.
So
Yeah. But interesting. And again, I think even though Carroll didn't throw it, the fact that I guess their defense was so strong that you talk about necessity being the mother of invention. And
right. And
so,
I think it had been used before in games, but never legally. It was the winter before that it was officially designated that the forward pass could be used.
Could be a legal part of the game, yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Thankfully for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Especially us smaller guys that played. So, well, neat. So I mentioned earlier this is also day 2 of Irish American History Month. And I think a good way to acknowledge that is there's a great documentary out, I guess more of a documentary type film. It was released late last year, and it's called The Job of Songs. And it's an intimate film about the community of musicians from where my family's from in County Clare in Ireland. My good friend Owen O'Neill, great Irish musician, is in it. And the film centers around a pub in the wee village of Doolin in the west part of County Clare, in the west of Ireland by the shore, and just down the road from my family's hometown. And I saw the trailer. It's a wonderful. If you love music and you love history, it's a wonderful portrait, and it explains a lot of the history that was carried down here to the Irish in America. In fact, not many people know this, but the Irish music tradition had almost died from the after effects of the famine, the great Angor Tamor in the 1840s, that killed 1 million and sent 1.5 million more overseas, most of them to America, some to Australia and the other colonies, but most to America. And it was a police chief in Chicago, the first Irish Catholic police chief named Francis O'Neill, that single-handedly saved the Irish music culture. He'd written several books. He saved a lot of the music. He had led classes and concerts and other events, and then a lot of that found its way back to Ireland, thankfully. And a lot of the Irish that are serious about the traditional music, they refer to like O'Neill's original book as the book. And so it's just a great so much history to be discovered here. And I asked you a little bit if you knew much about Irish history, and you had some neat portraits about them. They're kind of tough. Are there even some gangs?
A friend of mine, Rocky Schaefer, he was real interested in the streets of Waukesha, and there was one which was informally called Irish Alley, and that's where all the tough Irishmen lived. And I think I read somewhere that the north side of Waukesha was known as, that's where the Irish lived. On the bluff up there.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And so that was a place where you didn't want to go because the Irish were up there.
Yeah.
But then the Irish also did great things for Waukesha. The Dunbars, who discovered Bethesda Spring, were Irish.
Okay.
And Catherine Clark, his wife, was Irish merchants. In fact, one of the richest women in town was Catherine Clark Dunbar. Elizabeth Dunbar, and she owned the Clark Hotel.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So she was that was an opera house when she built it as an opera house after a big fire destroyed part of the block. So
it was rather appropriate that the Irish family that owns County Clare bought the Clark Hotel. They still own it, even though the Irish pub they finally decided to close it. But so that's kind of a neat history. And I'd mentioned earlier, when I had Sean Riley on the show, our mayor, Mayor Riley had mentioned that the Rileys have lived in Waukesha for more than 100 years.
I know, and I wasn't aware of that. So that's something to look up, I think.
Sure. I'd asked him. I used to give him a hard time because he spells his name Shawn, which is, for us Irish Catholics, it's sacrilege. It should be Sean. But he'd explained that his parents had named him John. And they, Sean is the Irish name for John, but they also didn't want people having a hard time pronouncing his name. S-E-A, And I have a brother, S-E-A-N, and so that's why they anglicized the spelling, if you will.
Makes sense.
So, but and that's
I'm sure he's forgiven.
Well, but he even said, when his father was running for the city attorney in the 50s, that his ethnicity and especially his Irish Catholic faith had become an issue, and it was one of the reasons he'd lost that election. And so there was, how should I say it? There were different groups that experienced, some adversity, discrimination, and the Irish were one of them.
Definitely.
Here in Waukesha and throughout the country.
Yep.
So, yeah. And
that would be a little interesting subject to explore.
We might have to collaborate on,
Yeah, the discrimination against the Irish.
Sure.
That would.
You mentioned John F. Kennedy had come here to campaign.
Right.
When he was running for president in 1960.
Yeah, I think he shook hands outside of Waukesha Motor Works.
Okay.
It,
neat.
it was when the
So-
primary was in the spring, and it was a cold spring.
Yeah, we're going to continue this discussion about history in Waukesha, a little focus on the Irish, and Kennedy's visit, and Pat Lucy, and so much more here on This Week in Waukesha on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Let the door hit your arse on the way